It's so sweet to trust in Jesus. Let's do verse 1, 2, and 4.
week, myself and Parker and Haley and Olivia and Raina, Addison, Katie, Autumn, Melissa. I think I left anybody out. We're at Camp all week. Carl. She left early on Friday. And this is the camp shirt this year, and the theme is the way. And one of the verses that the kids had in their memory packet was Romans 3:23, which says, "All sin falls short of the glory of God." And for that reason, the theme verse is so important to camp this summer. It's on the back of the shirt, John 14:6. It says, "Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." And of course, what makes that possible was his death on the cross. In fact, he was dead for 3 days, buried, and resurrected. I will celebrate his sacrifice for us.
Father, how much we thank you for your son, Jesus. He did go to that cruel cross of Calvary, and he died there. Painful, unbelievable death for us. That we might be able, if we believe in him, do his will, to do it. We thank you. And right now, Father, we just pray, thank you for that will do so. We please with the message. with, basically something on TV that really shows an interest. You think about it for some time. And a couple months ago, I was watching Neil Lucho on Fox News, and he had a guest there by the name of Ken Langdon. Ken Langdon, one of the founders, 4 men, founded Home Depot. Of course, you know how big Home Depot is. The man is a multi-billionaire. He and his wife together decided that they wanted to give some of that money away that they had. And so he said, you know, we have no problem whatsoever in writing a check. He said, my wife, she writes a check, hands it out. I write a check, hands it out. That's not a problem. Not a problem at all. He says when it comes to serving God, then there's a problem. There's a problem because you have to do something back. You can't sit back. So he was talking about all the places that he volunteered with, helped out. So I thought he made a really strong point. Well, it's easy for us to reject and say, when it comes around, I've done my work, I've done my job, I know what I was supposed to do tonight. But that's not true. This doesn't work. You have to do a little bit more. And in Scripture, Acts 20, you might want to keep note of this. Write it down. Acts 20, verse 35. It says, "And everything I showed you that by working hard in this manner," and this manner was that Paul was talking to the disciples. The last time that he was ever able to talk to them, the whole point was that they needed to get out and tell people about Jesus. That's what he wants us to do. He said, again, in everything that I showed you, that by working hard in this manner, you must help the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, that he himself said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Let's go to God.
God, we thank you so much for all that you bless us with. Prayer this offering right now that we're all about to give. God, amazing. God, we also pray that you will help us to examine ourselves, our lives, find ways to serve you, find ways to give you our money. God, we pray that we do that with service hearts, this thing to you. Pray that you bless us all.
Well, it is Father's Day. Can we get all our fathers to stand up for a minute? All right, look here, look around the room. All right. Okay, thank you, Ian. Yeah, you can hand those out now if you want to. Oh, thank you. Okay, so it is Father's Day, and a lot of times we hear a lot of negative things. Oh, kids can go to kids worship this time. A lot of times we hear negative things about dads. I hope it's obvious this morning we appreciate dads. But there's a story told of a young man who was getting ready to be sentenced to go to penitentiary. And as he was standing before the judge looked at him and realized that he knew this young man's father. And his father had written a book, one of the greatest books on a particular subject that had been written. And so the judge looks at the young man and he says, "Before I sentence you, do you remember anything about your father?" And there was a silence for a minute. And then the young man gave a response the judge was not expecting. He said, "Yeah, I remember one time when he was in his office and I went to him for advice. He said, 'Boy, get out of here. I've got to work on my book. I don't have time for you.' He said, 'Another time I went to Dad. I just needed to talk.' He said, 'Son, I've got to finish my book. It's important that I finish my book.'" And after the young man said that to the judge was kind of stunned. And the judge said, "Alas, the book is finished and the son is lost." Sometimes we think, well, dads don't really make that big of a difference. But dads do. Dads have a very positive effect on the family when they're the true kind of dad that's trying to serve God. And so today I want us to read a very familiar story, one that we know very well. It's found in Luke chapter 15. And we'll start at verse 11. And he said, "A man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the estate that falls to me.' So he divided his wealth between them. And not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together and went on a journey into a distant country, and there he squandered his estate with loose living. And now when he had spent everything, a severe famine occurred in that country, and he began to be impoverished. And so he went and hired himself to one of the citizens of that country and sent him into the fields to feed swine. And when he would have glorified his stomach with the pods that the swine were eating, and no one was giving anything to him. But when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread, and I'm dying here with hunger? Well, get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired men. So he got up and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion for him, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to the father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to the slaves, quickly bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead, and he has come to life again. He was lost and has been found. And they began to celebrate. Now we know the story. That's the story of the prodigal son. And we usually want to focus on the son in this story. But today I want to focus on the father. I want to focus on the father and think about the father. First of all, let's note in this story that the father provided the basic needs of the family. The father provided the basic needs of the family. Now it is apparent from this story that this father is pretty well off. He's able to divide up the inheritance and give his son an inheritance, and he goes away. He has to be pretty well off to be able to do that. But he's always provided for the very basic needs. This son does not know what it means to be in want. All right? Let's get that point. This father had provided greatly for him. Now, we need to understand it is the father's job to provide for the family. And in 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8, it says, if you don't take care of your own family, you are worse than an infidel. All right? So it's our job, guys, to provide for our families and make sure that they are well taken care of. Now, let me give you a few statistics from the Department of Agriculture about the expenditures of raising a child. All right? Every so often the Department of Agriculture puts this information out, and it's very important information that the government, state governments use to help understand what they need to do to help supplement families. And so here it is. The cost of raising a child from birth to age 17, according to the 2015 estimate that was released January the 9th, 2017. The report concludes that for every child born in 2015 to a middle-income married couple, that couple will spend between $12,350 and $13,900 a year in 2015 dollars. So from birth to age 17, that amount becomes $233,610 per child. All right? So think if you got 2 children, you double that. If you got 3, you're going to triple that. All right? So Dad, you got quite a responsibility in providing for your family. But what if they decide to go to college? Then what's the expense of raising a child? According to an article in Time magazine, September 18, 2009, if you're a middle-class family and your child decides to go to college, to get them through the undergraduate years, so from birth through the undergraduate years, you're going to spend $1.1 million. $1.1 million. Now, let me just say to the young people maybe you think, well, my dad just doesn't provide for me everything that everybody else seems to get. Just think what it cost your dad and how hard it is to make sure you have the things you need. Maybe we don't always get everything we want, but to make sure you have all the things that you need. It's quite an expense. But you never hear dads complaining about how much children cost. They complain about what things cost, but they don't complain about what children cost, because they love the children and they want to make sure that they are taken care of and provided for. So this dad had provided all the basic needs. But secondly, this dad was generous beyond what could be expected. All right? So look with me again at verse 12. It's on here on the screen this time from the English Standard Translation. The younger said to them, "Give me the share of the property that is coming to me," and he divided his property between them. Now when I read it out of that version, "Give me what's coming to me," I thought, man, if I walked up to my dad and said, "Give me what's coming to me," I wouldn't want what was coming to me. Right? But here's this son who's not appreciating anything his dad has already done. Right? All that it's already cost his dad to raise him to this point. And he says, "All right, just give me what's mine. I want it now." And the surprising thing is, Dad reaches in his pocket, pulls the money out, and said, "Here, take it. Take it." You know, it just blows my mind and how generous this dad actually is, and what he's given to this son. Now, it may be that the dad already knew some things that we didn't know. All right? Maybe dad already knew this son is rebellious. He's going to go off to this far country whether I give him the money or not. And I don't want him to just take off and go to this country and not have anything. Maybe he knew that this is what his son needed to grow up. And certainly his son was more important than the money. And so what if the son went off and wasted it all? Maybe he would learn some very important life lessons that would help him become the adult that he needed to be. So he gave them his inheritance. Now, sometimes, as kids we think, dads aren't very generous. Dads don't give us what we want and what we think we need at a particular time. Irma Bombeck wrote about her father, and this is what she said. "When I was a kid, my father was like the light in the refrigerator. Every house had one, but nobody knew what either of them did when the door was shut. My dad left the house every morning and always seemed glad to see everyone at night. He opened the jar of pickles when nobody else could. He was the only one in the house that wasn't afraid to go to the basement in the dark. He cut himself shaving. No one kissed it or got excited about it. It was understood that whenever it rained, he got the car and pulled it to the door. When anyone was sick, he went and filled the prescription. He set mouse traps, cut back the roses so that the thorns wouldn't clip you when you walked to the front door. When I got a bike, he ran alongside me for at least 1,000 miles until I got the hang of it. I was afraid of everyone else's father, but not my own. Once I made him tea. It was only sugar water, but he sat on a small chair and said it was delicious. Whenever I played house, the mother doll had a lot to do. I never knew what to do with the daddy doll, so I had him say, 'I'm going off to work now,' and I threw him under the bed. When I was 9 years old, my father didn't get up one morning and go to work. He went to the hospital. and the next day he died. I went to my room and felt under my bed for the daddy dog. And when I found him, I dusted him off and put him on my bed. He never did anything. I didn't know why his leaving would hurt so much, and I still don't know why. Sometimes we have that feeling, dads just don't do anything. But what about all those little things that she wrote about taking care of all the family needs? And how generous dads are, and dads do those things because they love the family. The third thing we need to point out here is that this father gave his son space. Gave his son space. I think we got, next slide, please. And let's pull that scripture up there. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey to a far country. Dad let his son go. Now, that's not always easy. Okay? Remember the first day your child went to school? That wasn't easy. Remember the first time they went to camp and were gone for a whole week? Or remember the first time they drove the car without you? Well, dads, remember when you walked your daughter down the aisle and gave her to a man you knew wasn't good enough for her? It's hard to let go. But we have to give our children space to allow them to grow. Gary Izzo says there are 4 stages of parenting. The first stage is from birth to age 5, and he calls that stage discipline. That's when you lay down the law. That's when you teach them what is right and what is wrong, and how they need to learn how to behave. Between birth and age 5. Between ages 6 and 12, he calls that training. It's when you train them, when you set the example, being the best role model you can possibly be. You train them to dress themselves. You train them to tie their shoes. You train them to cut their meat. You train them to do all the basic, essential things of life. And then ages 13 to 19, he calls this coaching. Because it's in this phase that the child is in the game and dad has to be on the sideline coaching. You're not playing the game anymore. You're coaching. Now, you may call time out. You may huddle up and pull everybody in and say, hey, well, this is what's got to happen. But then you send them back into the game and you coach because you're the coach and now they're the players. And then somewhere around age 20, he says the 4th stage is friendship. For the rest of your life, you're good friends. You walk together, you talk together, you laugh together because you turn them loose and let them become the person God wanted them to be. So, if you think your dad was wise enough to turn you loose, tell him thanks. But one more thing about this father is that he was willing to forgive a serious offense. If you look in your Bibles at verse 14. We see this about the young man. He had spent everything he had. Now, what did his father give him? We don't know how much it was. I'm assuming it was rather generous. We don't know how much it was, but the young man's been through it all. Okay? We don't know how he spent it, but not very smartly. And he's gone through it all. And so verse 15, he says he went and hired himself to someone who sent him into the field to feed pigs. Now, I grew up on the farm. My job was feeding pigs, okay? Part of the time. I'll tell you what, I'm not even a Jew, and I didn't particularly care for that job. Right? Pigs smell. And it's nasty when you get in a pig pen. But here's a Jew that didn't have anything to do with pigs. And now he's sitting in a pig pen, feeding pigs. And notice how hungry he is. He would have gladly filled his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating. Okay? Now, I remember helping Dad lots of times. We'd gather up the corn and we'd go to the feed store and they would put it in this hopper and then they would grind it and mix in with it other things that the pigs needed to help make sure they had all the nutrients that what they would need to grow. All right? I didn't like the smell of that. And when it came out, it was just, like a fine dust in your hands almost. And, I said, I wouldn't eat, no way. But then I remember, you gather up all the scraps from the house and what you carry it out and call it slop and you throw it out in the trough and the pigs are going after it. I wouldn't eat that. I had to get mighty hungry. But this young man was that hungry that he would sit down and eat what the pigs ate. And somebody would just let him. He was hungry. All right? And then verse 17 says he came to his senses. And he finally got smart. A lot of kids are kind of like Mark Twain. Mark Twain said when he was 14 years old, his dad was the dumbest person he ever met in his life. He said by the time that he got to be 20, that he couldn't figure out how his dad learned so much in 6 years. And a lot of kids think about their dads that way. All right? So this young man must have thought that way, and he said, wait a minute. Things were a whole lot better when I lived at home. Even the hired servants at home were better off. I think I'll go home. All right, and then look at verse 20, man. Verse 20 is up here. Notice this. The younger son goes back. And when he's still a long way off, notice what happens. His father saw him. Now, wait a minute, how did his father see him? He's a long ways off. How does father see him? His father had been looking for him, didn't he? His father had been looking for him. So he saw him. He felt sorry for him. He could probably see the situation he was in. He probably could see there was no light in the boy's eyes, that his clothes were tattered and torn. He didn't even have shoes on his feet. Right? So he felt sorry for him. Now, he could have said, he got what he deserved. Right? He could have said that. And he'd have been right. But he didn't say that. He felt sorry for him. Then it says, he ran to his son. He didn't wait for the son to come all the way home. He ran to the son, and he hugged him, and he kissed him. This man loved his son. And he wanted his son to know all of that. What compassion. What compassion. And not only that, while the young man's trying to say, Dad, I don't deserve to be called your son, he wasn't even hearing that. Because look what he said in verse 22. Bring the best robe. No, don't get the everyday robe. Go get the best one, the one you wear for special occasions. Go get that robe, put on this boy. And not just the best robe, bring a ring, put it on his finger. Why was the ring important? He's back in the family. He's back in the family. He needs the ring on his hand. And bring some shoes and put on his feet. And then go out in the pasture and get the fat calf. I mean the fattest one out there. And bring him in here and let's celebrate. The young man tried to make his confession, but all the father wanted to do was say, welcome home. Welcome home. Think about the dad in this story. Think about it for a minute. And think about another dad. Doug Flutie. Guys, I know you've heard the name. Well-known quarterback. You know, won lots of awards in college, played in Canadian football, played in the NFL. Doug Flutie had a son. And his son had autism. Now his son, growing up, first few years, everything was normal, everything was going well. But then autism set in and things began to digress. And finally, it got to the point that his son could not even speak. And Doug Flutie said, I would give up all my success on the ball field if my son could just look at me and say, Dad. Dad. If he could just say that one word, Dad. Think about it for a minute. The father in that story. Who is the father in that story? It has to be God. And I wonder if God, sort of like Doug Flutie, is just warning us as children to recognize that what He's provided for us, how generous the space He allows us to have. He gives us free will. He allows us to have space and compassion. Because when He looked down on us and felt sorry, that's what pity is all about. His mercy sets in, and then grace goes. That unmerited favor that we don't deserve. He gave us His Son, Jesus Christ, to pay for our mistakes. And He says, just come home. Just call me Dad. Come home. And you'll be adopted back into the family when you lay on your hands. When you believe, you repent, you confess, you're baptized for the forgiveness of your sins, you receive the gift of the Holy Spirit, and He's there to guide you, to help you, to direct you. Oh, I'll give you the best robe. I'll put the ring on your finger. I'll give you the shoes to wear. Because you were here, now you're alive. You're here this morning. You don't have that relationship with God. we turn to number 396 in our handbooks. 396, we use the first and last verse. You have a decision today for Jesus. Won't you come on and stand and while we sing? Big announcement. And Vacation Bible School starts tonight, 6 o'clock with dinner, and at 6:30 to 8:30 is the VBS program. And Lindsay, you got anything you need to say?
Yeah, if you've got kids that you know are coming tonight, I've got registration forms, so we're trying to jump ahead and figure out who's in whose classes. So we know most of where everybody's from and whose parents are who, so it's just basically filling out what grade they finished, their full name and their date of birth, and if they have any allergies, because you know me, I'm gonna make sure that everybody's okay. So if y'all can just come up and get one of those and just hand it back, at least we'll be one step ahead of the game. The other thing is, it's gonna be so hot this week, if people will bring like an extra shirt or pair of shorts if it's available, that way if we do water games, if somebody gets wet, they won't be sitting in the puddle for the rest of the night, okay? So if you guys can bring an extra shirt or pair of shorts, that'd be great.
Carol?
I need 10 hammers, please, tomorrow night. Well, tonight, bring them because I need them for tomorrow night.
And remember, you need a white t-shirt
And a white t-shirt before Tuesday.
I think that's it.
All right. Any other VBS in there? All right, so are we going to close the program next Sunday?
We'll talk about that, because I have to work. So if somebody else wants to run it, otherwise it's probably either going to have to be in the afternoon or the following Sunday. Couldn't switch.
All right. All right, so that's VBS. Everybody be here, be a part of it some way, somehow. If you're not already signed up to help, we can find somewhere for you and bring all the kids you bring. So we can teach you God's word. That's what's important. All right, the zoo trip is on the 30th. Kristen needs the money by Wednesday.
By Wednesday, if you need to push it till next Sunday will be the absolute latest day, Sunday, to get to work at that time.
Okay, if you want it by Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, if you can't give her money by Wednesday, you tell her I'm going, so she knows by Wednesday. Bring the money by Sunday. All right.
Special needs VBS is Tuesday through Thursday.
Thursday, Tuesday through Thursday, so we're gonna need help with
10:30
daytime with that as well. So, everybody that can help out with that, we would appreciate it. Okay, today is Father's Day, and the ladies have prepared, lunch. I know there's high brown roasted cooked over there, there's pork loin, and turkey loin, and then sliders, and whatever else everybody else has brought for lunch. So we want everybody to stay and enjoy lunch, celebrate fathers in that way. And this Saturday is a yard sale here at the church, and we're no more. We read about the bulletin, or we talk to Carlos and everyone else. Okay, in our prayers, Herschel Stone, the preacher at North End, had a car accident a couple weeks ago. He's in rehab, so keep him in the prayers. It's a long deep and Daniel. His wife Mary Stone is also battling cancer. Her health is not good, so keep her in prayers. Curtis Johnson will be having surgery next month. Continue to remember him. Also, being present at Vacation Bible School. There's a lot going on. We want everybody to be safe, and it is going to be hot. So just pray about it. Also, high school week camp is this week. It's going to be hot here, but at least we run in and out of air conditioning. Camp is going to be hot. They got air conditioning, but it ain't the same there because they don't keep it down too low because they might get it out too low. Not buildable. All right. Also, continue to pray for the family of Kathy Hayes. Kathy C. Hayes' wife, the preacher at Settle Christian Church up in Patrick County, which is also Philip Alligate's sister. For those of you who don't know Alligate, was the grammar speaker at Mid-Atlantic Christian University for a number of years. So, we're praying for him. H.V. Levasseur, prayers for him. Faye Franklin will be leaving this week, take the trip, be gone for a while, so keep them in prayers. Others have been remembered today. Carol.
Buddy and Mama.
Okay. Jasper and Dr. Childers. Jasper's at home, and Grandma fell, so we'll keep her in prayer. Good.
Harold's mom's in the hospital.
Okay, so that's Phyllis Woodward. UVA Hospital.
Still Oaks has praise. He got a job this week working at a hardware store in Danville. It's part-time, but it's a family-run business, and they told him he could work in the full-time, but he's still able to preach on the weekends, and they get off at 5, so he's still able to go to church on Wednesday night, so they are really thankful for that. So.
Anything else? Any member of prayer time? Also want to give thanks for lunch. So let's stand, and Dave, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today, and thank you for our fathers. And I pray that you, our fathers do well at raising their children. And thank you for my father and the years I had him. I pray that you'll be the prayer requests that were just mentioned here today. If those that are sick and those that lost their loved ones. I pray that you'll do the food that will not eat us into our bodies, and thank you for it. For it's in Jesus' name I pray.
Thank you.